We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCP pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll, Atlantis.
Water towers can fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight downside SCE off. Bring in SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks, you know the drill. Give me some 5x5s in chat. You should be able to hear the sound of my voice. John Galloway for NASA Spaceflight here, and you should be able to see a Falcon 9 rocket on Slick 40 out at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Don't be confused. It says Hotbird-13F. That sounds like something that Tory Bruno would launch, but it's not. Tonight, this is a SpaceX launch, launching the Hotbird-13F satellite for UTEL. It's a communications satellite going up to a geosynchronous transfer orbit, if I'm not mistaken. NASA Spaceflight team is going to be doing some commentary and doing some live Q&A for you, as we tend to do. So let's go ahead and run down the list of the folks who will be joining me this evening, starting with Mr. Chris Gebhardt out in the field. Chris, how you doing this fine evening?
Doing just fine. There's a moon, there's a rocket. Let's see if we can get a rocket to go up.
There is both a moon and a rocket. The moon is not quite in frame right now, but I'll fix that in just a second. And there is also a rocket. Chris is the assistant managing editor for NASA Spaceflight and will be out in the field. Watch him from about 3 miles away this evening. Also in the field, we have Miss Julia Bergeron. Julia, how you doing this evening?
Good evening, everyone. I am doing well. Not only were we watching the moon, but we were watching Mars and having wonderful conversations as a team, just sitting here on the grass and, enjoying the evening while we wait.
Excellent. And we did have a little bit of a wait there. Almost 2 hours worth of delays so far, right?
Yes, indeed. And I am thankful for the breeze that we have this evening because it cut down the mosquitoes that were biting earlier.
Excellent. Well, make sure you stay away from the water so none of the security folks take you off and roll you under the water or anything.
I'll do my best.
Okay, good deal. Hey, also out in the field this evening, we have Mr. Stephen Marr. He is going to be out there taking some sweet, sweet photographs and stuff like that. Not going to be on commentary this evening, but make sure you hop over to his Twitter at Space Coast Steve, because that is where you will get the hottest, freshest launch shots once this thing hopefully goes here this evening. Always a pleasure to have Steve around. And then also out in the field, we've got Mr. Thomas Berghardt. Thomas, we got you on comms?
You sure do. Rounding out the field team for tonight, and like the others, hoping that this rocket will in fact lift off after a couple hours of delays, and it's a beautiful night to go to space.
It is a beautiful night to go to space. Excellent. And last but not least here, y'all, back in the studio, we've got Mr. Sawyer Rosenstein. Sawyer, we got you on?
We are on. We are 5x5 here and excited for another Falcon 9 launch.
All right. You got your camera set outside everything? Do you need to go and reset the camera or anything? You good to go?
Already reset it. I'm about 150 miles south, so we'll try and get a nice streak shot and put that up later. But for now, we want to focus on the launch ahead.
All right. Well, good deal. Sawyer, can you give us a little bit of a rundown on which way this rocket's going? What's it taking to orbit and where is it going to be?
Absolutely. Right now, as mentioned, you are taking a look at Space Launch Complex 40, affectionately known as Slick 40, at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, which is right now where that Falcon 9 is. Once it launches, it will be going eastward, as is typical for these geostationary transfer orbit missions. On board is the communication satellite Hotbird-13F for the company Eutelsat, which is helping to upgrade their current communications network that they have to help relay video and TV and other communications to places like Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. So that's 160 million homes that'll be relying on this satellite, and a second one that is set to launch next month.
Excellent. So this is a single satellite on board. Any ride shares or anything like that this evening?
I'm not aware of any major ride shares on this one. The main payload is our Hotbird-13F, which was originally actually supposed to launch on an Ariane 6, but it wasn't ready, and Falcon 9 was. So here we are tonight.
There you go. All right. So y'all know how we do here, y'all. We are going to be doing some live Q&A. If you've got questions for us, tag us in chat. We've got some cool software that we can use to grab questions out of there. And I'll be getting those questions and tossing them out to folks in the team here, which we will get going in just a second. Same thing for the super chats and stuff. If you support the stream, you do a super chat or something like that, we do try to read those out as we count down. But we are now entering about 31 minutes, T-minus 31 minutes. We did have some delays here this evening, and it was how long was the window, Thomas Sawyer? Anybody know how long the window was?
It was just under 2 hours from 11:26 to 1:22.
All right, thanks, Chris. So we had a little bit of a window. It wasn't an instantaneous launch, but the current T0, which is 1:22 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, is the very end of the window, if I'm not mistaken, right, y'all?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. 3 people confirmed that I was correct, so I'm pretty confident that that's right. But that is the end of the window, so no more delays should happen. If they do have to do anything else to delay it, it would be a scrub going in tomorrow. But as of right now, sounds like SpaceX has pulled. Everything is go. Auto sequence has started, and we are starting to watch this rocket to see if we can't see some venting happening off the side of it to confirm that we are getting propellant loading. In fact,
there is actually the bottom left.
There you go. There are some little vapors coming off the bottom left of the rocket, which indicates that stuff is happening that is important before it goes to space. So let's see here. Let me see if I can't grab some questions here, which I am rapidly clicking to get over into that interface. And Sawyer, if you could help me choose some questions out of chat, if you've got that interface, that would be a big help this evening. Excellent. So let's see here who has been asking some questions. I see a lot of people talking about bacon, so you must have seen Jack in our little NSF update video we talked about the other day. Why the name Hotbird? This is a great question. Does anyone know why this thing is called a Hotbird? I don't know.
It's a really hot rocket. I don't know.
Okay.
And birds fly. The honest answer to this is no. Don't know why it's called Hotbird.
The back channel is saying it has something to do with roasted chicken. I'm not sure that's accurate, Alex.
From what I've seen on Intelsat's website regarding this particular payload, that is just part of the naming of their network, is just that the newer versions, at least, of their spacecraft are the Intelsat Firebird, because currently right now is 13C, B, C, and D. And once F and G end up launching, which are these two here, the one tonight and one again scheduled for no earlier than next month, those are so much more powerful that the 2 satellites alone will be able to replace all 3 of the ones that have currently been up there for 14 years. Sorry, Eutelsat.
Yeah, Eutelsat, not Intelsat. Those are two different, I guess, providers, right?
They are very different, yes.
Okay. I don't know if it's like a European thing or what the deal is, like where these satellites actually come from. But I am not sure why it's called the Hotbird. That's just what they name this set of satellites. A good question, though. Let's see here. Grabbing some more questions. I can't actually tell you exactly the dimensions of the SpaceX logo on the first stage. I don't think SpaceX has like released those dimensions, have they?
Not to my knowledge. It would be a fun experiment to try and figure it out.
Like look at the size of a tower or the diameter of the rocket maybe and try to figure out how big it is. Not sure.
Exactly.
I can't tell you how many meters big it is or whatever, but a good question there. How about this? Do we know the launch trajectory this evening? What the inclination it's going to? Which way could I look if maybe I was up in Daytona or down south or something like that?
Yeah, so today's flight, since it's going to geostationary transfer orbit, is going to the initial orbit will want to be the lowest inclination possible. And the way you do that is fly due east from your launch site. So today's flying straight east from Cape Canaveral. It's not flying up the coast like a lot of Starlink and ISS missions do. So unfortunately, if you're a little bit farther up the eastern coast of the US, you will have a lower chance of seeing tonight's launch. But if the sky is clear, it's usually still worth taking a look because rockets still fly pretty high, and even if you're a bit farther north, you might still be able to catch a glimpse. But this flight is flying due east from Cape Canaveral.
Deal. So if you're around the Cape, of course, you should be able to step outside and see it go. It looks like it's a pretty clear night out there tonight, isn't it?
It is. There was a couple clouds in the area towards the beginning of today's window, but honestly, with these couple hours of delays, and now that we're at the end of the window, the sky is a little bit clearer. And so, yeah, around here at least, we got some pretty good visibility.
Excellent. So hopefully the visibility holds there. We only need to hold for about 26 minutes so that we can get this launch done this evening, but let's see what we get. Continuing on with some of the questions here, y'all, I'm going to pull a couple more of those out of chat, but also let me hit some of the super chats really quickly. Got quite a few things coming in. Tenyel's Weather Space Station has upgraded their membership. Thank you so much, Tanyel, for upgrading to Launch Director. That was a little while ago, it looks like.
Oh, nice.
We had this stream going for a while, I guess, but we appreciate you there, Tanyel. Dwanji, I'm going to go with upgrading or becoming a Capcom member. Thank you for the support, Dwan. G, we appreciate you. Timothy Barth was a PadRat member, joined the membership program. If you want to support what we do and you want to hang out with us in Discord and get cool access to like early videos and behind the scenes content and stuff like that, the membership program here on YouTube is a great way to support us and get access to some of that cool content. So Timothy, thank you so much for that. And it looks like Dougal has gifted a couple of Red Team memberships here. Dougal, we see your name in chat all the time. Thank you so much for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Eric Beavers did a $20 super chat and says, wherever I go on YouTube, you guys just follow me around 5x5. Thanks for subscribing, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, Eric, but we appreciate the support. Thank you so much for being a part of the community. Uh-oh. It's Musical Wolves. This is a name we see quite often. What did Musical Wolves ask this evening? Is the data from the payload able to be received before launch, even while in a fairing? Oh. That's a good question. Who wants to get that one? Thomas, Chris? Who wants that
Yeah,
one?
I can touch on it. Basically, there are definitely some data connections between the satellite and the rocket. And so I'm not sure I don't think the satellite is transmitting any data from itself, like from its own antennas, because they're all stowed away in the launch configuration anyway. But the data connections between like the payload adapter and the satellite, for most launches, there is payload data that gets sent through the rocket's transmitters back to ground controllers so that the payload customer can be monitoring their spacecraft's health during the countdown and things like that. So unless this is a rare exception to that rule, yes, there will be Eutelsat operators that are monitoring the satellite right now throughout the countdown, and they can also flag, hey, the payload went no for any reason through a technical issue. They can do that as well.
Gotcha. So maybe some tests they can do there, but there are hardline connections as well, and they're talking to the satellite, getting telemetry not only from the rocket, the second stage, and all the different parts, but the satellite as well to make sure that everything is healthy. And we did have a couple questions here about the visibility and the weather. And if you look out here, we'll go to a little bit wider shot here. You can see the flag at the press site waving in the foreground. That bright light in the background is actually, that's going to be 39A in the background there. But you can see there's a couple little puffy clouds up there, but this should be a fantastic launch this evening. Hopefully they get it going in about 23 minutes. And the sky is mostly clear with a couple clouds for the rocket to punch through here. But that's what we're looking at with the NSF Skycam, or whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a tracking cam later, but it's showing the sky right now. Let's see here. Multi-Space Industries says SpaceX launch day must be a day ending in Y. # Thomas Fan Club.
Thank you, Multi-Space.
Always good to see you in chat over there. Another name we recognize. Garrick Hollenbeck has become a PadRat member. Appreciate you joining the membership program there, Garrick. Musical Wolves has snuck in again and asks, how many streams can fit in Hotbird? Seems like a joking question, but it's a communications satellite. Does anybody have, I don't know, the bandwidth that this satellite can support or the number of channels or something?
Yeah, so there are over 1,000 television channels on Hotbird-13F, 80 KU band antennas. as well for the primary transmission points, but that's about all I've seen Eutelsat talk about.
Yeah, it
Couple
includes
couple streams.
4K video as well, by the way, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah. All right. So I know it was sort of a joking question, but it is a communications satellite, and it is an upgraded communications satellite. It sounds like able to, I don't know, do a lot of communication. That's sort of why it's a ComSat. Let's see here. Zan Vipotnik is a Padrat member. Zan, thank you so much for joining the Padrats. And then Magma Hydro, one of those names you have to say in sort of a voice. Thank you for becoming a launch director there, Magma. And we have Musical Wolves with another question. T-minus 31 minutes, so that was about 10 minutes ago. What is the red blinking light by the right third tower? Anybody see any red blinking light
I do.
right now?
Yep.
I
So
see
just
'em.
to the right of the, it's actually to the right of the horizontal integration facility, or the HIF, the hangar at Slick 40.
Uh-huh.
Those are one of those pad status lights, and you'll see those at all of the launch pads here at Cape Canaveral and at other launch pads as well. And it basically means that you should not be here. It's like there's usually green, amber, and red coloring, and green means the pad's all clear. You can be at the pad. Amber, I think, usually means authorized personnel only, like very limited ops. Like there's hazardous operations, but people can be there. Red
Yep.
means this rocket's going to launch, and you should probably not be standing here.
Yeah,
It
makes
means
sense.
clear the pad, basically.
All right, and real quick while we've got this, the moon has been sort of going in and out of the clouds. The moon may have just gone behind a cloud there. So let's not worry about the moon. There's the T-minus 20-minute vent, which is way more important than the moon.
That
is,
is
of
a
course,
promising.
yeah.
Yes, we like that.
That is a important part of the launch countdown at about T-minus 20 minutes and some seconds. We always get that big plume coming out of the side of the rocket there. That is a completely nominal thing. It's not like an accidental leak or anything like that. That is the rocket system preparing for launch, and when we see that at 20 minutes and change, that is what we want to see, which means that SpaceX does seem to be proceeding towards launching this Falcon 9 this evening.
Yep, it's all
So-
part of the fuel that's used on board, in that the Falcon 9 uses liquid oxygen as well as RP1, which is a refined form of kerosene. And that's typically the super chilled liquid oxygen as it gets vented out and hits the very humid, warm Florida airs when you get that big vent off the side.
Yep. So again, folks, that is a normal thing to see. Not only can you see the venting down the side of the rocket, see down low, sort of the little vents. That's the actual cold side of the rocket interacting with the humid Florida atmosphere. That's where we get that sort of cascade or little, it's not even a vent, it's like condensation sort of streaming off the side. But that big vent is the T-minus 20-minute vent, showing that SpaceX is continuing to move forwards in their count for the launch, which is now less than 20 minutes away. Let's see.
Das,
Yes, Julia.
did you know that super chilled LOX has a superpower? It turns very sooty rockets into icy white rockets. I'm just saying.
It turns them into frosty rockets, huh?
That's right. To me, right in front of me right now, it could be a brand new booster for all I can see. So, just saying, it's a superpower.
Nice.
It
And
just
as
means
they-
Falcon 9 is very cool.
It's very cool. Thank you, Sawyer.
As in
As they
cold.
sort of fill it up, you'll see the small condensation sort of move up the rocket. You can actually see the rocket being filled with the propellants there, and the higher that condensation, I guess, emanates from the rocket, the more cryogenic propellants they have in it. Let's see if we can't grab a couple more questions here. Aha! Who wants this one? How many flights has this booster flown?
I can take
It
that
has-
one if you want. Go ahead. Chris is going to beat
Oh,
you to it.
Yeah, this is on its third mission tonight. It flew a Starlink and it flew a cargo resupply mission for NASA.
We need like buzzers or something so we can like have somebody buzz in, like beep, 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 and then the first person to buzz in gets to answer the question.
Maybe.
Yeah. And Chris, we got most of that. We got a little bit of a break up there at the end, but we did hear you on the number of flights. Let's
Yep, and to reconfirm,
ahead,
it was
Corey.
Starlink and CRS-24 to the ISS.
Excellent. How about the landing for this one tonight? Are they planning on landing this? Is it RTLS? Is it going to a drone ship? What is the plan for that this evening? Julia, I'll ask that question too.
Okay, so it is going to land on a drone ship. The drone ship for tonight is just read the instructions. As we discussed, this rocket is going to go eastbound, which means that is where that little postage stamp in the ocean is going to be waiting for this rocket to land.
All right. How many days before it might come back? Like, how many days does it take them to get the drone ship back into port?
Depends how long it takes to secure the rocket because, it does have to detank and then be secured by octograbber, but on average, 3-ish days if the weather's good.
All right. So we may actually see the rocket come back into the port on the drone ship here. And you can see the big vent there has stopped also normal. That is something that we want to see. That actually means that stage 2 LOX load has started, and that means SpaceX is continuing on just under 16 minutes away from the launch. We do have a little bit of a special, what's the right way to say this, opportunity this evening, because for a very brief moment, they didn't move it yet, did they? No, there's still 2 boosters in port, isn't there? Let's look.
Correct. There are 2
Yeah.
boosters in port right now.
There are. So over on the left-hand side of our shot from Fleet Cam here, you can see 1 booster vertical and 1 booster horizontal. Which boosters were those, Sawyer?
So there is booster 1077. 1077 is the one laying down that just came back from Crew 5. And then you have the other one, which is booster 1060. And that one has just come back from the Galaxy 33 and 34 launch. And that one is back from its 14th flight.
Gotcha. And then over on the right-hand side of the screen, right there at the end of the pergola, down low, you can sort of see some blinking lights. That is actually Slick 40 and the rocket carrying Hotbird-13F. So we can see on the camera 3 Falcon 9s right now, 2 of them in port and 1 of them hopefully about to launch here. I'll see if we can't hop over to this camera briefly because when it launches, it will light up the entire port, and it is quite a spectacle over there from Rusty's Seafood and Oyster Bar, which is where we have this camera. Let's go back to the close-in camera, a little bit zoomed in, and we'll keep answering some questions here for y'all. Let's see here. Here's a good question. Does SpaceX catch the fairing halves during night launches, or during night launches, do they just toss the fairings and not recover them? Who wants that one?
No,
Julia?
no. We keep these fairing halves, so they don't get tossed, so to say. They actually do have little thrusters on them, so they do have some guidance, and they re-enter and they parachute down. And then one of the support ships, either Bob or Doug, go and use that lovely crane and just pick them right up out of the water. They pluck them, put them on deck, and they bring them back. So I don't know how many times the fairings on this particular rocket have launched, but on Galaxy, each fairing half had already, I think it was on its 5th flight. So add up some savings there too.
All right. Let's see here. I'm going to see if I can get one more question for y'all. Oh, we can do this one real quick. D.A. Swanson asks, what does the 9 represent in Falcon 9? The 9 in Falcon 9 means they have 9 engines, doesn't it?
Indeed.
In the first stage, because there's actually 10 engines.
Yes.
So what
Falcon
kind of
9
engines are they though?
Wait, are you asking me? You can't ask me
Yeah.
questions. I ask you questions, Julia.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just informing you that in case anybody wondered, the 9 engines, they're Merlins.
There you go.
adding.
Yep, you have the
There you go.
1D is the ones on the bottom. Those are the 9. And then once it gets into space, in the vacuum of space, you have the Merlin vacuum, or MVAC.
Excellent. Hey, Sawyer, could you get 1 or 2 more questions here for us? Do you have that up to ask some questions?
Yeah, I've got a few loaded in the queue. I'll see if I can get some more for you.
Yeah. Oh, just choose one to read out for me real quick, if you could.
Sure. This one, as we mentioned, is going to be recovered. So if they plan to recover and reuse this stage, are there any upcoming launches that plan to dispose of the core stage? And I believe we have a few of them coming up before the end of the year that we're going to have to say goodbye to a couple of boosters.
Yeah, there are a couple older boosters in the fleet. I believe both 49 and 51 are now expected to be expended on their next flights, although those flight assignments have kept moving around. And off the top of my head, I don't remember which missions they're currently assigned to. I know if you check out next space flight, some of those booster assignments might be in there. But either way, there are a couple Falcon 9s that are going to be expended. Some of the earlier Block 5s maybe just falling victim to destructive inspection after a couple flights, or and they're just not suited to be flown many more times. But there is also the upcoming Falcon Heavy mission from 39A, the USSF 44 mission that actually has a performance requirement. Both the side boosters will now be able to return to the launch site and land at LZ 1 and 2. But the center core is going to be intentionally expended. It's not going to be, an attempted recovery like the first 3 Falcon Heavy flights were, even though those recovery efforts weren't super successful because of how far downrange they were really trying to land those things. But intentionally, they're going to throw away that center core to give the payload the energy it needs to get to its destination orbit. So that is another intentional expendable booster coming up in the near-term manifest.
Yeah, so it's gonna be sad to say goodbye to some of them, but again, there's so many in the fleet now, as we now approach 14 flights for a bunch of them. As we get towards 15, hopefully soon, it's exciting to see the numbers keep growing. Let's see. Here's another question. What is the ignition sequence for the Falcon? So what happens as we get towards the end half of the count and get ready to light the engines?
Yeah, so from the naked eye and from us watching the launch, it's going to appear like all 9 engines are pretty much lit at the same time. You won't really be able to tell a difference. They are actually offset though by a few milliseconds. Each of the individual engines starts up one after the other, and that's just to prevent the vibrations from all the startup transients of basically amplifying one another. And so when you offset all the engines by just a couple milliseconds, it reduces the vibrations from the startup. But that'll happen. That command gets sent, I think, at T minus 2 seconds. I'm looking at Chris. 3 seconds. Thank you, Chris. About 3 seconds is when the command to start the engines happens, and then through between T minus 3 seconds and T minus 0, or T0, I should say, the engines will all start up a couple milliseconds off from one another, ramp up to full thrust, and by T0, they will have completed their health checks, confirm that all the engines are operating properly. If any of them aren't, then the computer will automatically shut down the engines and cancel the launch. But assuming all the engines are confirmed healthy in those final 3 seconds of the countdown, the rocket will command the hold down clamps on the launch pad to release, and the rocket will begin its ascent.
The things
All
you can't
right.
quite see at the naked eye there, yeah.
Yeah. And you can see, look at the side of the rocket, how I said the condensation was going to sort of go up the side. Look at how almost the entire rocket, the first stage and the upper stage, have that condensation sort of streaming off the left-hand side of them there. That is looking good. Now less than 9 minutes away from the launch of Hotbird-13F.
And while we're within this less than 9 minutes, just a reminder that this is the launch of Hotbird-13F, which is a communication satellite that will service parts of Europe and Africa. And it is scheduled to launch a little over 8.5 minutes from now on a due east trajectory on its way to geostationary transfer orbit, or GTO.
All right. Let me see if I can't grab just a couple more super chats. T minus 8 minutes. We did cover the red blinking lights. Okay, good. Here's a quick one from Attila Barigi. I'm going to go with, hey guys, so boosters are being reused 10 plus times now, but what do we know about the engines? That's actually a little harder to track because, the booster goes by, it comes into port, it's got a little serial number on the side of it, and we can sort of photograph and see that, but we can't really do the same thing for the engines. Do we have any indication on how often they swap out engines or how many flights engines are doing?
I don't think we really do. I know we have the understanding that not all engines are basically staying with the same boosters all the time. We know they can swap engines, and we know they have. We don't have like a list of every single Merlin ever produced and where all the flights they've done. So we don't know if any Merlins have actually flown on more missions than a booster has, or if they've all flown less. But we do know that they do periodically swap out engines as needed. I would imagine that most engines do stay with the booster unless there's something that actually prompts an engine replacement of some kind. But they do that, and unfortunately, we don't have any way of tracking the flights for a specific engine. And I don't think SpaceX or Elon have said anything about that.
Gotcha. So one of those things that's a little bit more difficult to track, and they don't release any specific information on the reuse of the engines. But clearly they're reusing some of them, and some of the turnaround times seem to imply that they don't have to do an awful lot of refurbishment on some of these rockets in between flights. So it doesn't look like they're completely pulling all the engines and replacing them all or anything like that. Let's see here. Cody Coy has become a launch director. We appreciate you there, Cody. Thank you so much for the support. Drew Nar Ciridis says, just got here. Are we talking about bacon, brownies, or cows tonight? Hot birds, mostly. No bacon or brownies so far, but hot birds. Thank you for the support there, Drew Nar.
If
Kit
pigs
Kat.
fly, but then you make bacon, is that a hot bird?
I don't think that cooking a pig makes it a.
Was that way too much of a stretch? Is it? It's
Man,
1
I
in the
don't
morning.
know.
Give me a break.
That is a stretch, Thomas. Just gonna say. Some quick ones from Kit Kat here. Some support for the NSF team. You guys are doing amazing work. Been watching for about a year now. Kit Kat, we appreciate the support. Thank you for showing up. Especially, that's a Euro sign, so it must be pretty late for you over where you're watching from. Thank you so much for being a part of this. This Chris, you'll appreciate this one. Brandon Meyer says the 3 flashing strobes have me screaming, "There are 4 lights!" Thanks for the early morning coverage, NSF team. How many lights are there, Chris? Uh-oh.
I think Chris might have been muted, but he did say there are 4 lights.
We might have lost Chris there on that one. But good counting of the lights there for all of the Star Wars fans out there.
I flipped the kill switch to the wrong location. Sorry.
Well, I just
Yes,
said
I was
Star
very- I
Wars
was
and you
very
were
much-
muted, so you couldn't say anything about it. So go ahead, Chris.
Exactly. I found the on switch for that. No, no.
All right.
I screamed, "There are 4 lights," and I appreciate that. Yes.
Did all the other press people out there look at you like you're crazy?
Those that didn't go home an hour ago, yes.
Those that didn't go home an hour ago.
The crazy ones.
The NSF team stays out for the launch. We want to hang out and share the launch with you. One little old delay isn't going to make us all throw in our hats and go home.
Or a 2-hour delay for that matter, yeah.
Let's see. Oh, wow. There are a couple more questions here I'm going to hold until after the launch. They're a little bit more involved, and we want to make sure that we have a good amount of time to launch them because we are now to answer them because we are now coming up to T-minus 4 minutes. So again, y'all. Yes, Julia.
But I do have a follow-up to a question that's really quick.
Oh,
Remember,
go.
I didn't know the answer to how many times the Fairings have flown for this particular mission. Alex
Yes.
brought me an answer of each Fairing half is now flying for a 4th time per the webcast. So
All
there you
right.
go.
So not only are the Stage 1 boosters reused and all the components thereof, but the Fairings have actually flown. This is the 4th time, or they've flown 4th times? That always trips me up.
That will be the 4th time when we watch it tonight.
Okay.
And the
that will
3rd
be
time
the
we're
4th time.
watching this booster. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see here. We're
And
getting
again, just
down...
a reminder that venting is normal. The gas you're seeing out the side there is completely normal.
It's coming off both sides now, it looks like. What else are we going to see here in the
Just
next couple
think of
minutes?
it as I'm a little teapot, okay? And it's just doing its spout.
It's doing its spout. Thank you. We should get the strong back starting to back away a little bit, but we're not going to have a very good view of it from this perspective because the strong back is actually going to come towards us. It is the support structure that helps verticate. I think that's a real word. Lift the rocket up vertically, and before launch, it actually moves away just a little bit so that it doesn't take as much damage from the flames coming out of the flamey end of the rocket, which is pointing down, if you've been watching Tim's streams lately. Let's see here. 2 minutes, 40 seconds. How's everybody feeling?
We are
Feels
feeling
like a good night to go to space.
Everybody just jump in at once. Nice. So, folks in the field, I am going to go ahead and bring up our ambient microphone out there. We will have Sawyer go ahead and talk about the launch as it goes. We'll mute y'all's microphones and we will bring up our ambient audio mic there so we get the rumble of the rocket as it comes across the water towards our camera, which is just about 3 miles away. So we'll go ahead and bring that up here. And we will talk to our folks in the field after the launch.
Right, so now we're getting towards the key point of the launch here. The big thing is going to be once we get to T-minus 1 minute, so about 55 seconds from now, that is when Falcon 9 will be in startup. That is when everything is completely controlled by the onboard computers. Any aborts or scrubs are typically done by the rocket at that point. That is also when all of the propellant tanks will be fully pressurized to their flight pressure, as opposed to the point now where it's kind of just in a final fill and top off. T-minus 45 seconds is when we should be getting the go for launch officially, with engine ignition starting at T-minus 3 seconds. And again, as of right now, they are venting out the last of that liquid oxygen from that line, so that's why you're going to see this big venting now, clearing out all of the lines on that strong back, the TE, the transporter erector, ahead of the liftoff.
Now, all this is normal. People see this and are like, oh my gosh, the rocket's leaking. What's going on? These are all normal things. You don't want to have fuel and propellants in some of the lines that you use to actually fill the rocket up. So they're doing purges here, and they're clearing out the excess propellants from some of the lines that they use to actually fill it up. But we are now under 1 minute.
The Falcon 9 is in startup.
Launch.
So right now, the rocket has control.
Excellent. Sawyer, I'll let you go ahead and do it, so we're not talking over each other during launch, but just tell everybody what's going on with the rest of the launch here.
Absolutely, will do. So at this point, we are now T-minus 30 seconds. We should have a go for launch. Once again, the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the bottom of the rocket have been chilled and are ready for the ignition sequence, which that command should be on its way to it within the next 10 seconds. As we prepare for that engine ignition, and shortly after that, followed by liftoff of Falcon 9 and Hotbird-13F. So we should look for a small spark or flash at the bottom as the engines get ready. There we go, we have ignition, and we have liftoff. Falcon 9 is on its way, and Hotbird has its wings, flying towards its geostationary transfer orbit in space. Love hearing that engine sound from the liftoff itself, that slight delay. There we go, you can see that as we have 2 other boosters already in port there, both returning from previous missions as Hotbird-13F continues its way up in flight. It is working its way as it goes, hopefully soon, towards past the speed of sound and goes supersonic. It pokes its way through the clouds.
Look at that.
That is gorgeous. The next major milestone that we're going to be looking for will be in the next 15 seconds or so, and that is max Q. That is the moment when there is the most dynamic pressure on the vehicle. So basically when the rocket is dealing with the most forces pushing down on it through the flight. So once it powers through that, they will keep firing those engines harder, and it will continue on its way. And that should be max Q right about now. You can see there as that smoke trail kind of begins, it is now past the speed of sound, past Mach 1. We are T plus 1 minute and 30 seconds into flight. We are now 1 minute away from MECO, or main engine cutoff. There is a bunch of events that will happen in quick succession once we do that. The main engines, all 9 of those Merlin 1Ds, will cut off. At that point, the first and second stage will separate, and that is when the first stage will then begin its trek to just read the instructions, the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean, while we prepare for SES-1, which is the start of the second engine.
Look at this, Sawyer. Look at the plume expansion here. This is actually Michael on the robotic tracking camera. Michael all the way on the west coast controlling the tracking camera, showing us that awesome plume expansion. Looks like we got a little bit of cloud there. Look at that.
Fantastic job on the track, Michael. This is gorgeous.
Oh, wow.
And again, the reason you see it spread out like that is as the atmosphere gets thinner, that's where you start to see the 9 engines kind of expand, and you can really pinpoint each of the 9 engines. So we should be coming up now on Miko. And there you
That
go.
looks like
That is
Miko.
main engine cutoff, which should be followed shortly by separation of the second stage from the first stage. And there we go. We have SES-1, which is the second engine start. So the second stage is on its way. There we go. Good confirmation of the ignition. The next thing that we will hopefully keep an eye on is in about 30 seconds, we should see the fairing halves deploy. The fairing is what's used to protect the satellite as it goes through the atmosphere. However, once we leave the atmosphere and go into space, we don't need that protection anymore, so we get rid of the extra weight, and those will then parachute back down to be recovered. And look at that.
You can see a little bit of a plume there. I think that plume is actually being lit up by the engine itself. Look at that!
Unbelievable. The jellyfish type look there.
Wow. Those are
You don't
thruster
get-
firings.
Yes. We should have fairing deployment as well. And yes, the way that the first stage reorients itself back to the landing is it does small puffs of thrusters on board, and that's what you're kind of seeing there trailing behind that bright light. You'll occasionally see those puffs from the first stage as it works to reorient itself to an eventual landing on just
So
the instructions.
That's the moonlight. The moonlight is
goodness.
actually illuminating that plume, and every now and then we lose it because the cloud is going in front of us, but look at that plume. That's really cool.
Normally you get the jellyfish type effect, as we like to call it, from either twilight, sunrise or sunset around there. I don't think, it's been a long time since I've seen one where it's lit by the moon itself.
And there is another, do you see the other, is that another piece that's going with it, or is that a lens artifact? I wonder if those are two things. What could that possibly be? This is the second stage that we're seeing because it has an active engine that's continuing to accelerate it. But is that the booster flying along with it?
I believe that is the first stage, just to the top right on our camera view of that booster.
You can see the stars going by because the stars sort of like, they move. And then the two things are flying in formation almost.
Right. I mean, the big way to tell is once it does its first entry burn. So that first stage will fire up a few of its engines, not all 9 again, as it works to slow itself down so that it can land shortly after on that barge floating in the ocean. And that should be happening in about a minute and a half from now.
Looks like the other little, I'm interested if that other thing's going to show up, but look at it passing the stars. It really gives you a sense of how fast that thing is moving when you see the stars sort of, the stars move, but they're sort of static in the background. Is that the booster down and to the right now?
It looks like it. And a reminder, that orbital velocity is 17,500 miles per hour. So it's got to go very fast.
And we are standing by to watch for the entry burn as well. I'm super curious if we're going to see the entry burn from our cameras here.
It's about 45 seconds away from now.
Yeah. We'll definitely have it on the SpaceX stream if we need to cut to that. But I'm super curious if we're going to be able to see it ourselves with our own eyes.
I wouldn't be surprised. I doubt the landing burn, but I suspect that we will, especially with this lighting right now, have a chance to see that first stage entry burn.
Yeah. I feel like Michael has trended a little bit lower here. Then I'm also watching our other camera to see if we get a bright light in the sky all of a sudden.
So that entry burn is about 15 seconds away, and that burn will last for approximately 28 seconds. Gotcha. And again, that will help slow that first stage down as it works its way towards landing on the drone ship, and shortly after will hit the atmosphere. And we should...
There we go.
Burn. There it is.
There you go. Look at that. You can actually see the plume behind it.
Yep. Again, that is wow. That is the first stage on its way back.
Yeah. Just for a second there, we did see that entry burn. And now I think that's the second stage continuing on here. Let's hop over to here. I believe the entry burn should have stopped by now.
The entry burn should be over,
nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at this point, the first stage has its grid fins deployed, which they look like kind of waffles, but they're large pieces of titanium that will help it steer once it re-enters the atmosphere and can use that atmosphere to help control it in addition to those thrusters.
I mean, that thing is just going downrange. I mean, here's the long range shot, right, of sort of the plume going downrange, and then of course SpaceX has the camera that's slightly closer than ours because it's on the rocket itself. But we
There-
can still see that little dot going. Go ahead, Sawyer.
There is our second stage, which we should be coming up on SECO, or second engine cutoff, shortly. That is at T plus 8 minutes and 7 seconds. So about 20-ish seconds from now, that will turn off that main engine, and then the focus will be to the first stage, which should begin its landing burn about 10 or 15 seconds after that SECO, second engine cutoff.
All right, let's see what we get from SpaceX on this one. I haven't been seeing the live views from the booster, and it looks like these cameras are having a little bit of a hiccup this evening from the SpaceX feed. That's okay. We'll cut them some slack because they're literally mounted to a rocket that's going downrange.
Yep. All right. So the left will be the view from on board either the first stage or the drone ship. Just read the instructions.
Yep.
Looks like it's on board.
There we go.
There is the landing burn. You can see those grid fins. It will now use them to make a final correction turn at the very end to align itself with the X to mark the spot on the center of that ship and land.
And look at them activating. Look at those active grid fins sort of working. There goes the landing legs.
Landing legs are deployed.
Camera shaking. I'm okay with it. That's awesome.
The signal held, and there it is.
There you go.
That is another successful flight for this booster. That marks the 141st successful landing of a Falcon 9.
Right there. Not quite in the middle, but we'll give it to him. It's inside the center ring, I think. The engines are in the center ring. So that's worth what? 50 points instead of 100?
Well, I'll give him 75.
Thanks. Give him 75. Nice. And then how much of this is going to be a big coast here because it's going all the way on a GTO trajectory. Do we have another burn coming up, or what are we expecting
We do.
next?
We have about 20 minutes until we have SES-2, which is second engine start number 2. It will relight about 29 minutes after liftoff, and that burn will last just under a minute. And then about 6 minutes after that second burn, we should have deployment of the satellite.
All right, we'll keep checking in with that because there is another burn, and if it's 20-something minutes away, we may be able to answer some questions all the way through that. We've been up this long, right?
Yeah.
Really quickly, what I want to do is look at my favorite view on launch night. I guess it's night this time right now. There you can see that transporter erector, the structure that's there where the rocket was. You can actually see that it's leaned back towards the camera as it got out of the way as the flames as the rocket took off. Of course, the 4 lightning towers are still there, but I like to say this is my favorite view on launch day or night. It means that we just got to see an awesome rocket launch. Happy we were able to share that with y'all as well, because we have an empty launch pad over here at Slick 40. So that is what we like to see. But let's continue talking here, and let's answer some more questions that came in. We'll continue to watch the SpaceX feed here because we're going to have that second burn coming up, and we should be able to get all the way to payload deployment. It looks like SpaceX has been showing video of the payload itself, so hopefully we do get to see that separate. Never know exactly what they're going to show, but let's see what we get. I am going to tell our folks in the field that they can go ahead and pack up their camera. They actually drove out in the media convoy tonight. So Chris, Julia, Thomas, and Steven were all out and about. And Thomas, y'all can go ahead and pack up that camera, and we will use the other cameras. Thank you so much for the great tracks there this evening.
That sounds good. Thank you much for all the support on the inside with the studio. That was worth the 2-hour delay.
Excellent. And Chris, was that you tracking tonight? Who was tracking tonight?
It was indeed me tracking tonight. Yeah.
Excellent. Great job. That was a fantastic track.
And that was some nice visual layering as she went through the clouds tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I'm going to help them pack up and stop talking and actually help them pack up. But thank you so much for all of you, all your support on the inside on the studio. Couldn't have done it without you guys. And thank you to everyone for watching. This field guys will leave you with the studio crew.
All right. Well, that is the voice of Chris Gebhardt, one of the folks out in the field this evening. We also had Julia Bergeron out there, and we also had Mr. Thomas Berghardt, and then Stephen Marr was out there as well. So that was our field team this evening. We'll continue to answer some of your questions here because Hey, second engine and deploy coming up here shortly. We might as well stay alive for that, right, Sawyer?
Absolutely. Why not? We've come this far. We've waited this long. We might as well stay through deployment.
We might as well stay through deployment. Let me hit a couple super chats real quick. And while I'm doing that, Sawyer, if you want to see if there's some cool questions that we can continue answering. Martin Daniel Richard Paredes, $4.99. Thank you so much for the support. We appreciate you making it so that we can keep doing this. Christopher Niblet just upgraded their membership to Capcom. Thank you so much for keeping on here, Christopher Niblet. We appreciate you being a part of the membership program. Crafty Geek says, please sell prints of tonight's moonlight jellyfish effect. Tonight has had amazing imagery. I'm going to be watching Steven's Twitter feed here, and if Steven gets a tweet out, we may very well see some of those shots here live on the stream. We'll see what we can do, but Crafty Geek, thank you so much for the $10. And if you are a connoisseur of those fine metal prints that we sell over at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, thank you so much for supporting us that way as well. If y'all don't know, we actually have quite the selection of metal prints over on our shop. It's another great way to support what we do. I'm going to cheat real quick, and that's a freeze frame from before they packed up the camera, but whatever. If you visit our shop, we have an awful lot of different Starbase stuff. If you like full stacks, we've got some new full stack things here. If you're a Starbase fan, look at the waves and the color in the foreground here. I think Nick took this one. And we have all sorts of different options, especially stuff that's fresh off the presses. I guess it's a metal print, so it's still fresh off the presses, because SpaceX has just done this full stack out there at Starbase. So a couple different sizes, a couple different price points. It's another fantastic way to support what we do and get some awesome space-related art to put on your wall. And I mean, come on, don't just have like a blank wall there. Like, you should decorate your walls, and why not do it with fantastic space art? Back away from the static shot. Go ahead, Sawyer.
Just a reminder, by the way, if you do have questions, make sure you tag us at NASASpaceflight, and that way we can see them and hopefully answer some of them while we wait for second engine start in about 15 minutes.
All right. I will get through a couple more bits of support here. We got Crafty Geek. Crafty Geek, thank you for that. And then here's a question. These are the two questions that I deferred until after the launch. Sausage asks, when's the next Falcon Heavy flight? And for a bonus point, will it be boosters land landing? So I guess an RTLS. Sawyer, how are we looking on a date for the next Falcon Heavy?
As of right now, the Falcon Heavy is set to be a spooktacular liftoff on Halloween, October 31st, is the current plan. And the two side boosters, 1064 and 1065, are expected to be an RTLS, which stands for Return to Launch Site, and they will land back at Landing Zone 1 and 2 on land, whereas the center core stage for that, which is 1066, is going to, I believe, be expended. So that one will not land on a drone ship or on land.
We've heard that sort of flip-flop back and forth a couple times. Surprising that they would expend one. We don't see that very often, but for the Falcon Heavy here, it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens there. Like, are they going to try one of their, like they used to do, the sort of soft touchdown? I guess the problem is if they do a soft touchdown with no drone ship, they have to have fuel left over. And if they're trying to get every last bit of energy out of that center booster, they don't want to have any fuel left over for a soft touchdown. So it will be quite interesting to see what SpaceX ends up doing there. But as of right now, I think, like Sawyer said, the latest information, 2 RTLSs for the side boosters, and then a expendable splashdown or crash down into the ocean for the center core.
Part of that has to do, also keep in mind that SpaceX on the East Coast currently has 2 drone ships, and you see the rate at which they're flying at this point and recovering all of them. The drone ships are going in and out so quick. That allows for a much faster turnaround, too, if you want to get something off of Pad 40 soon after.
There you go. That's another good point. Sausage, thank you so much for the Australian dollars. I just noticed there was an A next to the amount, so we appreciate you. And then here is a question from Magic Skates. Sawyer, these are Canadian dollars this time, so you have to, I guess, say sorry when you answer. Magic actually says this is a dumb question. There are no dumb questions, Magic Skates, not on our stream. We like to answer all sorts of questions at all sorts of knowledge levels. But Magic Skates understands that jet fuel is basically kerosene and wants to know what are the differences between, I guess, jet fuel and the refined kerosene used for launch, like the RP-1.
That's actually a really good question, and it's one that you don't really think about that often. You just hear, refined kerosene is special. In particular, RP1 has a lot more stricter requirements when it's being made, which helps when you need something extra, pure and efficient for something like a rocket. So it's a lot lower sulfur, which that can damage hardware at higher temperatures, which, surprise, rocket engines are high temperature. It also helps improve thermal stability. And as mentioned, it's all of the extra impurities that might be found in there are tended to be filtered out even more, because if you get any of those in the turbo pumps, it could be a bad day for your rocket.
So it's space kerosene is purer, more refined, most likely more expensive, and you could just call it space kerosene.
Pretty much, yeah. But you've got engines on an airplane deal at a little bit lower temperatures, and they're a little less combusty compared to a rocket engine. So
Combusty, nice. That is a technical term, folks. Combusty.
absolutely.
Let's see here. This is an interesting question, not related to the launch tonight, but let's give it a try real quick. Elmad asks, could you explain how hard it is to steer a spacecraft like DART at high speed to hit its target? I know you just can't turn the nose like a car.
That
So there's
I
no
would
wheels,
love to see a spacecraft
right?
with a steering wheel. Yes, that would be fantastic.
There's no like contact or pavement or anything in space really to give any friction. Like you couldn't even put canards on it and use that to deflect the trajectory. When they're steering a spacecraft like that, they're usually sort of deflecting the trajectory a little bit. And the way I like to think about it, like imagine you have a pool ball on a pool table, right? In the pool ball, if you just sort of push it across the table, it's going to continue in a straight line across the table. That's sort of how DART, or the spacecraft, was sort of approaching the asteroid that it hit, Dimorphos, Diddy Moon, whichever one it was. So it's sort of going in a straight line. And if you need to steer it, you need to impart a little force to one side or the other. I'm sort of thinking in 2 dimensions because it's a pool table, right? But imagine you were to like roll the pool ball across the table and then just tap it on the side as it went by. And if you did that, you would sort of like bend the trajectory, or you'd sort of like deflect the trajectory a little bit to one side or the other. And DART was doing that in, I guess if it's approaching a target, you could say 2 dimensions because it's approaching the target in the 3rd dimension, right? But it's literally little thruster firings that's just sort of tweak the trajectory to one side or the other. It's not friction, it's not wings, there's nothing in space. It's literally just the thrusters using old Newton to give it a little tap in one direction, and that little tap sort of deflects the trajectory where you want it to go. But hopefully that's an analogy that you can sort of think of. Like if you're rolling a ball on a flat surface, on a pool table or in your living room or whatever, and you just sort of tap one side of it as it goes by, or tap the other side of it, you can sort of deflect it a little bit. That's sort of how the spacecraft, I guess you could say simplistically, deflects its trajectory or steers its trajectory towards a target. There's all sorts of other cool things that DART was doing because it was actually driving itself. It wasn't like somebody back at home with a joystick saying, "Oh, we need to deflect right a little bit, give it a little right thruster or whatever." That's not a thing. DART was actually taking pictures of the system and using those pictures to steer itself towards the target that it wanted to hit. But at the end of the day, it's little puffs of gas, just little nudges, and Newton says you get an equal and opposite reaction that sort of deflects you just a little bit in the other direction. Though there's sort of technicalities involved, like you're in orbit around things and there's gravity and of other bodies affecting you and that sort of stuff. But the long and short of it is a little bit of a thruster boop gives you a little bit of an impulse in another direction, and it just deflects you as you move towards your target.
And
How'd I do there, Sawyer?
ironically,
Okay?
DART ended up doing the same thing to the asteroid. It ended up deflecting it. So
It did.
it kind of
Did
worked
you-
as its own thruster there.
Sawyer, weren't they like trying to deflect it by like 60 seconds or 70 seconds or something like that? And they changed the orbital period of the asteroid by 30 plus minutes?
It was a larger improvement than they expected, which is a good thing when you're talking about protecting our planet from, possibly life-destroying asteroids in the future.
They whacked that thing good, that's for sure.
Right, and again, that asteroid was not doomed to go anywhere near us, which is kind of why it was used for the test.
Yeah, it was actually captured around another asteroid. Like it
Right.
wasn't free flying out in the solar system. It was orbiting another larger asteroid. And what we did, we sort of booped it on its nose a little bit, and we slowed down its orbit around the larger asteroid. It's still captured there. We didn't accidentally knock it into Pluto, or, I mean, Pluto's way the heck out there. We didn't knock it into Mars or anything like that. We didn't hit it and accidentally put it on a trajectory that's going to hit like Buenos Aires or anything, and then we have to go after the bugs or whatever. We booped it a little bit and changed its orbit around its parent body, but the parent body is still going to continue on its normal trajectory, largely unchanged, and poses no threat to the Earth. We were just sort of hitting it to see how much we could affect it by crashing something into it. We were not actively needing to deflect it away from us for any reason.
Right, and again, for steering, you can also take a look at the re-entry today from Crew Dragon Freedom. As it's moving away from the station, you can sometimes see those little thrusters firing as well to help make small changes.
Yep. All right. How are we doing on time here, Sawyer? When is our second engine burn?
We are now less than 6 minutes away from SES-2, which will put our spacecraft here into its on its way towards geostationary transfer orbit.
Okay, and we may not actually get a live video here. It looks like it's going to be over parts of Africa, and we don't always have 100% continuous coverage of live video from the spacecraft, depending on what ground stations it's within range of. So this may be a call-out sort of thing, where we just have to report that SpaceX has confirmed that the engine burn has happened, if it's in a place where it doesn't actually have live telemetry. We'll see. It'll be an extra treat if we get that from SpaceX whenever we get up to here.
That's a good point also, mentioning the fact that right now the spacecraft and the data and telemetry and everything has come from ground tracks. If any of you ever watched our Starbase Live, you can sometimes see if it's going over Texas that they will use one of those tracking antennas there to help get data back to SpaceX.
And we did promise we would have this, folks. I said you should be on the lookout for Mr. Space Coast Steve. Before we get into the second engine burn, well, I guess, you know something, I'm just going to put it full screen. That's fine.
We got
Whatever.
5 minutes. Go for it.
We got 5 minutes. I'll put it full screen. Here is the tweet from Mr. Stephen Marr. He did a streak shot from the beach this evening, it looks like. And you can find this on Twitter. I'm going to go ahead and put it into chat for you real quick, if I can find the window.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, here we go. I am just going to put this tweet. Make sure you toss a follow to Steve over there. Steve actually has a Patreon account as well. You can buy prints from his shop. It's all linked there in his Twitter profile. But if you want to support specifically what Steven does, make sure you visit his profile. Check out the awesome shots that he gets. I like the sort of ghostly people because it's a long exposure shot, right? As you do a streak, and the people are not holding still. They're moving around. You get this ghostly viewership, it looks like, right?
Yeah, streak shots are typically between 1.5 to 4 minutes. This one looks longer because you can also see it looks like part of the second stage. And as he mentioned in his caption, talk about the luckiest of vacations. That is high school students from Atlanta in the front of that picture who just happen to be on vacation here.
No kidding. We're double watermarking it a little bit here, but it's fine. They lucked out this time because they got to see an awesome rocket launch. Fantastic shot there, Steve. And again, folks, I linked that up into chat. Make sure you hop on over and visit Steve's profile on Twitter. All right. How we
I'll
looking
have to see
here?
how mine did later. I set one up in my backyard to automatically trigger it liftoff, so I'll see how that goes later.
Nice.
Right now, we still have second engine start coming up in about 3 minutes.
Okay. See if we get the live video feed back.
Back channel says we typically do for the geostationary transfer orbit missions, which is this one, again, going pretty much straight east as opposed to a northeasterly trajectory.
One way to find out. We'll keep hanging out.
That is very true.
We can grab one more question here. Oh, here's one. Sawyer, you might know this one. Does the Dragon name stand for anything? Or did they just, like, make it up, use it because Dragon sounded cool? Like, do we know why they named the Dragon spacecraft Dragons?
Yes, we do. And I kid you not, it's because of the song Puff the Magic Dragon.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
legitimately.
jeez. They just like Puff the Magic Dragon, and so they named their space capsule Dragon.
It is the dragon because of the song Puff the Magic Dragon, and if it's going through all of your heads, it's going through mine now too as well.
Is Falcon legitimately named after the Millennium Falcon?
Correct, yes.
So it was like,
there's a view from the second stage. But
hey,
yes. Yeah, Falcon 9 is because of the Millennium Falcon, and the dragon is because of Puff the Magic Dragon.
there you go.
So, yeah, SpaceX continuing with its fantastic little oddities there. Not Space Oddity, that's David Bowie.
That's a different thing. Now, right now, we seem to see some sort of venting or something there. The engine should not have fired yet. But
Correct.
It looked like something was...
It's actually preparing the engine for fire,
Right.
is my understanding. It's getting everything chilled back up and ready to go, as we're just about to put super cold fuel running back through the engine here. And it's going to get super hot. And again, space, you've got variation of temperatures between negative and positive 200 degrees here.
Let's see if we get that back here. There we go.
And it's in daylight.
It is. It's gone. You can see some ice. See the little bits, the flakes sort of going around it? That is usually ice that comes off. There's those.
Yep.
Well, every time
There
I
it was.
talk about it, they change. It's like they don't want anybody to see their little thruster going.
No, we just
Or
need to stop
going.
talking about it, that's all.
Yeah. We won't mention it. The next time it comes up, we're like, there it is.
And again, so here's what's going to happen, what we should be seeing shortly. That Merlin vacuum engine, which is the second stage engine, is supposed to start up in less than a minute from now. That is a 58-second burn scheduled. That is when SECO 2, or second engine cutoff, will occur. And about 6 minutes after that is when we should see the deployment of Hotbird-13F.
I think that's what she's telling us right now. We
I
don't.
promise you that's not what I look like.
We don't usually pipe through the commentary from the official streams. She is doing a little bit of a talk here, but I wonder, it looks like they should be within the engine burn now, but they are not currently showing it, it seems.
Burn is scheduled to start in about 5 seconds from now.
About 5 seconds? Okay. They zoomed in on the
Yes.
timeline.
Right, and here we go. It should be
Here we
firing
go.
up now. Speak of the devil. There we go.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. You can see that shake of the momentum there.
Yeah, and the chunk of ice that sort of like was floating free and then all of a sudden got whammed into the side of the engine bell.
It's thankfully designed to be able to withstand that, but yeah. Ice, baby.
Did you seriously just say ice, ice, baby?
I've got too many songs stuck in my head right now, okay?
Oh my gosh. That's too cold, Sawyer. That's too cold. So this is going to be just about a 60-second burn, like you said. What'd you say? 58 seconds, I think?
58 to be exact, but who's counting?
58. Nice. It's not like it's in space trying to go on any specific trajectory or anything.
No, it's not rocket science. It's orbital mechanics.
You could really see here. Do
10
you see
seconds
how just at the end of the bell, the exhaust basically just goes straight out the side? There's no air pressure there. Like, as soon as the engine bell ends, you just get force going in all directions, and that's why your vacuum-optimized engine bells will actually be a little bit bigger. Looks like we've got
The
cut off
MVAC
there.
engines are much bigger in comparison to the Merlin 1Ds. I don't know the exact dimensions, but having seen one at Hawthorne, there's a difference.
And you need that engine bell to help keep your exhaust going in the opposite direction you want to accelerate your rocket. You'll see those larger engine bells on the vacuum optimized engines because you don't just want the exhaust to go out in every single direction. Down at sea level, you can actually use the atmosphere to help you constrain that exhaust going away from your rocket. So you don't need that big engine bell. But here, can't see it now because the engine's off, but if that bell wasn't there to help direct the exhaust backwards, the exhaust would just go straight out to the sides and you wouldn't get nearly as much bounce for your ounce. Bang for your buck. It's not bang, it's in space. You can't hear it bang. I guess if you pressed your ear bone against the rocket when the engine lit, you could potentially hear the vibrations going through the frame of the vehicle, but whatever. That's why I like to say bounce for the ounce instead of bang for the buck. Anyways. How much longer before we have the deployment of the satellite here, Sawyer? I may have lost Sawyer. Sawyer was having a couple hiccups earlier there. Uh-oh, chat. Y'all may just be stuck with me now. So we should see the engine burn coming up in about seconds. When we... Sorry, not the engine burn, the spacecraft deployment. 36 left, about 4.5 minutes away from now. Thanks, back channel. Ah,
Can you hear
Sawyer,
me
did
now?
you make it back? Yeah, we got you back.
We're less than 5 minutes away now, which we actually caught a glimpse for a short moment there of the satellite
That's it.
there of Hotbird. There it is. There's Hotbird.
All right.
Although pretty cool right now, I'd say.
Yeah. Doesn't look particularly hot, but they paid for it. I guess they get to name it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. My one that got cut off apparently was thrust for your pizza crust, so it was probably better that it was cut off and I didn't repeat it. But
Thrust for your pizza crust?
instead of bang for your buck, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've had what? Bacon, brownies. We need another food group here.
It's a very food-related stream. Every NASA spaceflight is a very food-related stream, that's for sure.
No kidding.
See here.
And again, a reminder in case you're wondering what that payload is, we talked about it a little earlier. Hotbird-13F is a communication satellite for Eutelsat. It is meant to provide up to 1,000 television channels, including 4K, to homes across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. This is replacing an aging group that was out there already of Hotbird-13B, C, and D. We've gotten to the point where they are so improved now from those that were launched 14 years ago that it now only takes 2. And 13G, its second one in the network, is scheduled to launch sometime next month on a Falcon.
We're just going to look at the Falcon 9s on Fleet Cam here as they roll their promo video for the client, it looks like. That's what was going on over there.
Yep, and then just bring this one back after another successful flight. It's had a 3-time flyer here and 4-time flown fairings. That'll hopefully bring it back to port. And then
I guess we should
just read the
potentially,
instructions back and
I'm actually going to zoom in on the rockets that are still here.
Yep, the one that is laying down there kind of on the left, that is, I believe, 1077 is the one that just came back from its first flight, which was the Crew 5 launch of the Crew Dragon Endurance to the International Space Station. And the one that is standing up there all verticated, which is now one of my new favorite words, is 1060, which just returned from its 14th flight last week, which was Intelsat.
I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. They're still running promotional videos, but as soon as I see something that looks like spacecraft separation, I will try to hop back over there to it.
Yes, spacecraft separation is scheduled for about 36 minutes or so after liftoff, so probably about 2 or 3 minutes from now.
2 or 3 minutes, gotcha. There, you got a little sense of scale because you can see the truck down there at the bottom next to the container, and then there are 2 Falcons. Yeah, there's a human next to it, and you see the landing legs of the one Falcon, but do you see the Falcon laying down behind it? The black inner stage on the left-hand side behind the containers, the right-hand side, there's a little bit of a comms tower thing, then there's the container, and you can see the landing leg. There are 2 Falcons in this shot. See if you can see that Falcon laying down. You can actually see the American flag and the part of the Falcon logo there next to the left-hand leg that goes down.
As well as one folded leg over to the right.
Oh, yeah, on the one that's laying down. Yeah.
Correct, yeah. And a reminder of the booster that just landed now, 1069, it kind of had a little hiccup on a previous flight where it came back to port with a very noticeable lean. This one obviously was repaired and flown, and hopefully it won't come back to port with that lean again, which we should be able to see once it comes back in with our fleet cam over on Space Coast Live.
Yep. They switched over to the satellite view here, so I hopped in. It looks like the satellite is actually in shadow right now.
We are 10 seconds away from deploy.
Right.
Scheduled deploy.
Scheduled deploy. Let's see if it pops
off.
off
I always
the
want
top
to emphasize
here.
that.
Okay, that's a logo again.
I
guess they paid for it.
Opacity, maybe?
Hey!
There we go.
Nice.
That is on its own now. So that is Eutelsat 13F. That, again, is going to geostationary transfer orbit. So that will be up there. I'm trying to remember what the exact inclination is. But again, it will be joined by a second one shortly thereafter in about a month or so.
So do you know if they rename these once they get on orbit? You know, like the GOES, they become GOES East, and then there goes 35 or whatever, GOES N or whatever. Is this one going to stay Hotbird-13F or Eutelsat? Like, do you know if they change its designation once it gets into position?
Um,
I don't know
I
if they do that or not.
That I would need to double check exactly. I know, again, a lot of the Russian ones get renamed. Some of them get renamed by the network. I believe. I don't think so. Give me a moment. I'll take a look while we see if there's any other quick questions.
It looks like SpaceX is not going to show us the stream anymore. So I did want to share one last thing with you before we go ahead and shut down the stream for the evening. We did get a fantastic shot on Twitter from Julia Bergeron as well. So let me get this linked up in chat. Sorry about the
Wow.
overlay at the bottom. Got too many windows. We'll remove the ticker. There we go.
Another
I am
gorgeous shot.
I'm going to link this into the chat as well so that you can check out Julia's awesome streak shot. Make sure you toss a follow to Julia Bergeron over there as well. She says something Hotbird over the moon. We had to wait until the end of the window, but Hotbird is on the way to orbit.
And to answer your previous question, it will continue to be Hotbird in orbit too.
All right, good deal. So there is Julia's shot over there from the causeway with the rest of the NSF team of the launch and the moon in the background for this evening's awesome event. Sawyer, how we doing? I think we've done some pretty good coverage here so far.
I hope so. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. But yeah, with that, now Hotbird-13F is on its way to help provide people with fantastic 4K television video as they get ready for its second one to complete their network.
Okay. And folks, we are going to go ahead and start to spool down our live coverage here. We always appreciate y'all showing up, hanging out with us, whatever time of the night it is. If there's a launch that we have access to, we can get you views of. We try to be here. We try to answer your questions. We try to hopefully be entertaining. We're not official NASA all buttoned up and official or anything like that. We do have a lot of fun with this, and we appreciate y'all being able to share it with us this evening. Everybody who did super chats, including Mike and Marilyn Warren, thank you for the $10 there saying great coverage all. Everybody that did super chats, join the member program. If you get a print from the shop, a metal print or something like that, buy a t-shirt or whatever it is. If you financially support us, thank you so much for making it possible for us to keep doing what we do. But also, if you just show up to the stream, you're just here asking questions, you like and subscribe, you click the little thumbs up button or whatever, you send it to a friend or whatever it is, click like or retweet on one of our tweets. Those are also fantastic ways that you can be a part of what we do and you can help support our NASA spaceflight coverage from everything that we cover for you. This evening, we will be sending you back over to Space Coast Live. We'll have views of the VAB, construction happening at the Starbase pads over at 39A. It's actually going to end up looking a little bit like this. And everything that goes on over there. Every now and then, we'll actually see Falcon boosters roll past our 24/7 cameras at Cape Canaveral. But that is going to conclude our live coverage for this evening. Sawyer, thank you so much for spending the evening with me here. That was a good time.
That was a great time, Das. Thank you, including our 2-hour wait. But as always, worth the wait. Falcon 9 put on a great show. And most importantly, its satellite is in space as it needs to be.
All right. What does it say next to your name? It says contributor. All right, there's Sawyer Rosenstein. It says contributor next to his name.
Called
He's
worse.
at the you've been called worse. He's at the NASA Man on Twitter. Go ahead and toss a follow to him.
Thank you. And if you keep an eye out on that, hopefully in the very near future, once I go outside after we end the stream, I may or may not have a streak shot. So we'll have to keep our fingers crossed on that.
Oh, one way to find out. Follow him on Twitter at the NASA Man if you're interested to see how his camera turned out. And my name, of course, is John Galloway. If you're watching over on Twitch, you may know me as Das. But that is going to end our live coverage of the Hotbird-13F launch out of Slick 40 at Space Canaveral, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station this evening. You'll end up over on our 24/7 stream, Space Coast Live. Thank y'all so much for watching, and we will see you nerds later. It's that time of the evening, so I'm going to go ahead and roll the outro music just because I can. See y'all later, nerds. Thanks for watching.
pressure looks good.
Doubling up.
Water towers can fly!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SCE off. Say again, SCE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Hang on, sorry, let me clear it out here. Oh, good. I guess we'll clear it out. Hey, Michael, your thing's broken. The audio's hot. The end stream here. Hashtag blame Michael. Jeez. Amateur hour here. Bye, y'all.